Hello, I'm Gareth with Mountaincoffee Outdoors. I'm heading out to do a little overnight camp. Got a little bit later start getting on the road than I would have liked, but that's primarily due to just having to wait till I got off work before I could go, and having to throw a couple things together still. But I'm on the road. I have probably an hour and a half or 2 hours or so of sun to go before it sets. So make the most of it. I wanted to just pull my phone out and record a little video intro now, because I know that I'm probably not going to have time to pull out my camcorder and actually start doing video stuff until I'm probably at the spot I'm going to camp at. So I think I'll just carry all my junk in and then go from there. For this little trip, I'm excited because I have several items of gear which are brand new that I have recently got, and I'm excited to try them out. I got a Polish Lavvu, rain cape shelter tent that just came a few days ago, and I have some other stuff which I got with my dividend from REI. Some gift cards I had. So I'm excited to pull out some new stuff, some new outdoor toys, and put them to use to see how they work. So thanks for joining me. I will be talking with you later. And there's a turkey on the side of the road. Yeah, I didn't show you that, but you know. Well, I'm at my camping spot. Sorry I didn't do any of the cool walking by the camera shots, especially with my new pack, which I'm actually kind of proud of. I got an external frame backpack, which I've wanted one for a while. I've actually never owned a full-blown, backpacking aluminum frame external frame pack before. So, and yeah, it's 2019, and I still kind of like external frame packs. But anyway, sun's starting to get pretty low on the horizon already. Just need to get my my Polish shelter half Lavvu tent put up for the evening, and get a fire going, stuff like that. Time to get to work. Now, first off, I need to button this together. And this Lavvu shelter is like brand new, unissued condition. Came with the little plastic bale things around it and everything. I think it was manufactured in 2004, based on what was written on a little tag that was on each of the halves. So we'll get this button together, and away we go. And with each of the halves of the rain cape Lavvu shelter here, they each come with a set of poles. There's a set of poles with stakes in there also. It has the rubber band around it. With my version, I have the 3-pole set. Some of them apparently only have 2 poles that are longer. And with the poles, you take, in this case, all 6 sections and put them all together. On the top, it has a little plastic button in there that'll be what holds up the shelter itself, so it's not sharp on there. And on the bottom, it has these little plugs that help keep it from sinking into the ground. And there's a little tether on there, because some of them you'll have to pull off so you can fit the sections together, and that way you won't lose it. It's really a pretty well designed piece of gear. Get all these together here. All right, we'll start staking down the shelter. Try to stake it down fairly loosely to start out with. Seems to be what everybody says to do. Might have just enough of it staked down now to put the pole in there. So I can keep the pole together. There's a little pocket on each corner where that pole slips in there. There we go. And some more stakes. And there we go. That was definitely pretty easy to set up. And of course the last stake kind of forms your door. Just kind of get things staked out there a bit. Now make some adjustments. Keep things a little tighter. But yeah, I think that'll work for the night. All right, let's put a little tarp down for my floor. I had a really hard time trying to decide whether I wanted to come out and hammock camp and use my new Atlas straps to hang my hammock with, try those out, or to go with the Lavvu. So I decided to go with the Lavvu. So to hopefully make the night a little bit more comfortable laying on the ground, I brought my old school 20-something-year-old thermarest and also my ridge rest, which is about a year or two older than the thermarest. Ridge rest I think I got in 1994, and the thermarest I bought in 95 or 96. I guess it was 96. I no longer ever take this thermarest backpacking with me anymore just because it's too heavy. Get this thing blown up here. Well, I think that'll work for the night. Got plenty of headroom in here. I have to say, with the way I have it pitched right now, the wall is a little bit close to my face, which isn't a big deal. But I am a little bit constrained with the space I had to pitch this. So some of these, like this stake, I wish it was out a little bit further, but there's something back there. But yeah, these walls would be a little tighter and less saggy if I had more room back there to pull that stake out, but this will definitely work for the night. I have to say, I'm already tempted to buy a stove to put in here for the winter. It has to be one of the smallest things that'll work for a hot tent. You can put a stovepipe in the armholes. You just have to prop them open with something. And, if you want to know more about these Polish Lavvu shelter house shelters, I would suggest checking out some of Survivor Metal Man's videos on them, and also Girl Outdoors and Bushwhacker Man. They have some good videos on them. These definitely seem to be popular in the UK and the United States and other places too. Pretty much all over, seems like. Get my sleeping bag in there. Down vest, pack cover, and sleeping bag. Tonight it's only supposed to get down to about 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So that would be maybe 1 or 2 below Celsius. So it's not going to get very cold by any means. I have my down sleeping bag. This is, I think it's a 15-degree bag, so I'll have no trouble keeping warm with that. It's been a little while since I've used this little piece of gear. My candle lantern. There's a little buttonhole up here that I'm going to hang this on there. And that'll give me some light tonight while I'm in there, and a little bit of warmth. This is the really downscale version of hot tenting, when you have a tent with a candle on there, but it does provide more warmth than you'd think. Well, I finally did it. Up to this point, I have always used bow saws, and I do like bow saws. I think they do a good job. But I have always wondered about pole saws, and especially about these Silky saws, because everybody says that they're really great. They're really well made, work wonderfully. Back in November, I developed some sort of shoulder issue with my right shoulder. It's like an impingement or something going on. Lately, it's been doing better than it had been. But it seemed like when I came out and did a lot of wood sawing, seemed to make it worse. Still not 100% sure if that's related or not, but it didn't really seem to help the situation at all. So I did wonder if possibly a pole saw might help kind of change that repetitive motion thing up from the sawing motion enough to where maybe that would help my shoulder out. So that's also part of the reason why I wanted to try out a pole saw. This is the Silky Bigboy 2000. It has that curved blade. Wasn't exactly sure if I wanted to go with the curved blade or the straighter blade, but I just got this one from REI, and this was what they had, so I went with that. This one has the two cutting positions, so that was also something I liked. Maybe if this more downward position might maybe make my shoulder happier, you know, why not try that? But anyway, time to put this bad boy to use here. Fits pretty well. You do have to make sure to pull and not push. And this is some pretty darn hard honey locust too. Very hard wood. At least this log is. Almost has this polished granite feel to it. Nice thing about these type of saws is you can get them in a tight little spot. There's no way you get a bow saw on this spot because it's actually through a little triangular hole. Yeah, very useful. Pretty easy to saw, even with your non-dominant arm. But yeah, I'm definitely pretty impressed. It's a good saw. No, they're not the cheapest pole saws in the world, but these are made in Japan. They're made for people that use saws, like arborists, landscapers, folks that really need good quality work equipment. I would say if you're just kind of curious about whether or not pole saws might be for you, I'd probably suggest getting one of those $20 Baco Laplanders or whatever the company is that makes them, because they're far cheaper than these, and a lot of people really like those too. So that'd probably be a better thing to try things out with instead of like a $60 saw or whatever this was. But I was pretty sure that I was going to like it, so I didn't have a problem paying that or using that amount of my money back from REI to pay for it. While I still had a little bit of sunlight left, I wanted to pull out some of my gear I'm trying out. This is the GSI Halulite 1.8 liter tea kettle. I'm kind of looking into this as a like a fairly lightweight backpacking cooking option. It's just a tea kettle. It's anodized aluminum, and I have my MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe stove. Yeah, I got the Pocket Rocket 2 just last year, but I decided to try this out also. It has some definite design changes with it, which seem pretty nice. And I have a fuel canister in there. But yeah, I mean, you can fit one of these large propane butane fuel canisters in there, the stove, and the kettle itself. Now obviously you can easily heat up water in a tea kettle, but I'm going to look into whether or not this works to cook in. I brought really simple food this trip. I'm just going to make some ramen noodles, and I have some tuna to go with it on the side. But I think I'll be able to cook that in here and eat out of it just fine, or I could even pour the food out, no problem. But yeah, I'm going to try a little experiment cooking food in a teapot. Might as well get out my stove. I'm going to wait just a little bit before I start cooking my food, but might as well set everything up now. I'm going to have to do it later. One of the differences with the Pocket Rocket Deluxe is that it is regulated. It regulates the pressure that it releases. It also has a little Pezio or whatever they're called, strikers, so it's easy to light. Turn the gas on, light it, and it's going. But yeah, new toy. Time to try it out outdoors. Alright, boys and girls, I think it's time to cook my supper for the night. I have these ramen noodles, it says instant noodles. These are from Indonesia, apparently. It says that they have some sachets of seasoning powder, seasoning oil, sweet soy sauce, chili powder, and fried onion. So I guess with these you get a few extra little bits and pieces as opposed to just the seasoning packet that you usually get with the American variety. So I guess that's a good thing. Yeah, I'm gonna cook all this hopefully with success in my GSI Halulite tea kettle over my brand new MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe stove. So it says to boil about 400 milliliters of water. And I do think this has graduations in it somewhere. Yeah. They're on the side. I'm sure the camera's not going to pick this up. Oh, wow. I would have put more water in than that. Just kind of guessing. I'll put just a touch more in there. Hope this is a stable enough spot for my stove here. Get this fired up. It's definitely nice having that starter Pezio striker, whatever those are called. It's definitely not going to take very long to bring this to a boil. As little water as there is in there. But these MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe stoves, they are pressure regulated, so what that does is it helps maintain a more steady pressure at the burner, I guess, over the course of the use of the fuel canister. Usually it's just kind of a full blast thing where it's operating at the pressure that the fuel canister has in it, and that just drops up over time. Whereas I guess the performance of these stoves should be more level and then just drop off sharply at the end. To be honest, I feel a little silly cooking over a backpacking stove when I have a fire right here that would cook everything just fine, but that's alright. I'm doing this very intentionally. Definitely has a nice flame to it. The burner on this Pocket Rocket Deluxe is also quite a bit wider than at least on the Pocket Rocket 2 I have. Alright, we're boiling. I'm just going to turn off the stove altogether. It's so easy to light back up. I usually crunch up my noodles. I just think they're easier to eat that way. So let's see here. Pull out all my various seasonings and such. There we go. And it says to boil noodles in briskly boiling water and simmer for 3 minutes. So we'll just light this back up. suppose I better get a spoon. I might turn this down a little bit. Looks like some hot pepper and some seasoning powder, or some chili and seasoning powder. And here we have some sort of seasoning oil that's rather solidified because of the cool temperatures. Some soy sauce and some sort of fried onion. I better check my flame here, make sure I have a nice simmer. Yeah, it's not bad. It's definitely one nice thing about these fuel canister stoves is they are very adjustable. Some white gas stoves are not very adjustable, especially some of the older school type, like some of the ones I like using, like the Sphia 123 and the Optimus 8R. They're not really adjustable. You might be able to adjust them a teeny little bit, but not much. I know the MSR Whisper Light that I do not own is not really very adjustable either. I think you can kind of monkey with it a little bit to get a simmer out of it, but they don't have like a valve adjustment for the flame control. The Coleman Peak 1 stoves, though, are adjustable, which is nice. I'm not sure Coleman makes any white gas backpacking stoves anymore, which is a shame. I do think they make some of these type of gas canister stoves. I'm gonna try to warm this stuff up and get it a little bit less solid. Now it says mix all seasoning sachets according to taste on a plate while noodles are being cooked. Remove noodles from water and drain well. Oh, that's interesting. So this doesn't really make a soup. Huh. Okay. Maybe I shouldn't crunch the noodles up. Very nice simmer going, that's for sure. I mean, can't ask for a better simmer than that. I suppose I better go get my Sierra cup so I can mix all the seasoning stuff up. Well, I'm going to shut off the stove now. I think those have, there we go, it's nice and warm now. I think I'm just going to cut the top of this thing off. Maybe I'll add the solid stuff first. Alright, just add these to Sierra cup. Yeah, speaking of old school gear, I'm not even sure they make the size of a Sierra cup anymore. These ones might be a little bit messier. Okay, this is the syrupiest, I guess most viscous soy sauce I've ever seen, if that's what that is. I don't know if maybe it has some sort of a thickener in there or something. It's just really viscous stuff. Hey, that was a good shot, actually. Well, I got it right next to the fire, anyway. It's practically in the fire. the piece of wood it's laying on burns down enough, it'll light on fire. Alright, well I'm going to go drain my noodles here. I don't want to do that right next to the tent here. Well, I'm happy to report that this kettle worked pretty well to drain those noodles. I just pour the water right out of the pour spout, and even though I crunched up the noodles into little pieces, I only had maybe like 3 little bits fall through. Oh yeah, that's right. Supposed to mix this stuff up first and then add the noodles. I suppose that'll work. Pour my noodles in there. Yeah, the noodles would have been a bit easier to get out if I hadn't crushed them all up, but that's alright. No real big deal. Well, I'm going to say that round 1 of cooking food in this Halulite tea kettle was a success. Really worked quite well. Of course, ramen noodles are not the most adventurous thing to cook in the world. But, you know, when I go backpacking, you can cook some pretty good food while backpacking, but usually just due to wanting to keep things as light. There's a barred owl hooting. At least I think that's what that is. I don't know if the camera picked that up or I guess the microphone picked that up or not. I usually try to keep things... There it is again. I'm sure if I start talking again, I'll hoot again. I usually like to keep things simple and light, backpacking. There we go. Well, hopefully the lighting is working somewhat anyway. It's kind of an awkward way to try to film, but yeah, just enjoying some noodles. These really are pretty good. Definitely not your normal, at least American ramen noodles. All those seasonings, the oil and the soy sauce, little bits of fried onion. Definitely adds something to them. I also have a pouch of tuna. It's another Friday in Lent. So, no meat tonight. Get this top torn off. No mackerel soup tonight. That was kind of interesting. If you don't know what I'm referring to when I'm talking about the mackerel soup, just go watch my, oh, what's it titled? Like, Spring Camp of the Flooded Lake Part 2. I'll put a little, little link over here. That was an interesting fishy concoction. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying it was different. But I'm going to finish eating my food tonight and then do some good old-fashioned sitting in front of the campfire. It's really a wonderful evening to spend in front of a nice cozy campfire. The weather out here is just about perfect. Very, very little wind. I mean, by Kansas standards, there's no wind at all. It's just a teeny little bit of a breeze every once in a while. It's cool. It's, I don't know, low 40s, upper 30s. And sitting in front of this campfire feels very nice, very warm. It's very inviting. It's definitely springtime. Hear a lot of animals out and about. Saw a turkey just on the side of the road on the way here, and I heard some gobbling around here and heard some flying around in a tree a little ways off from here that I could kind of see them. I think they were flying up there to roost. It was, you know, around the time the sun was going down. Heard some coyotes, like usual. Heard some owls. They got some really good owl hooting and calling audio by a couple of, I believe, barred owls. Some of the hoots they were doing, I have never heard before. I wonder if it might be some sort of a mating call or something like that. Because there was one on one side of me and one on the other side, not too far off in the trees. And one of them on one side flew over to where the other one was, and then they made the funny calls together, and then they've been quiet ever since. But I think the microphone probably picked that up pretty well, so I'm looking forward to being able to hear that. I definitely, you know, I enjoy the sounds of being outside. You know, I think everybody does that enjoys getting outdoors. I was just thinking back a little bit ago about how my first camp out that I went on when I was a Boy Scout, the first camp out that I went on as a member of the Boy Scout troop was the spring camporee in 1991, and it was in April. So it's more or less the same time of year as this. And that camp out, I think it was warmer than it is this weekend. And, you know, obviously it's no surprise that the weather was different. You know, April can do almost anything, be hot, be cold. But the weather was warmer, but we went out on a Friday Friday evening essentially, and set up our camp. And that night, a fairly nasty thunderstorm rolled through and just rained quite a bit, and there was lots of thunder and lightning, and made a real muddy mess of the road that was right next to our where we camped. I know some people had a hard time getting out when it was time to leave, but that was I still have many memories of that camp out. It was a camporee, so there are other troops out there also. And I assume there was some sort of, you know, activities or something with that, but if there were, I don't remember what they were. But it seems like the main activity that morning was everybody just kind of seeing how everybody had made out in the storm the night before. But that was, man, I don't know, like 20, who knows how many years. I'm not very good at doing math in my head. I guess 28 years, something like that. I guess I'll have to correct myself if I didn't figure that right. I do far better doing math problems with a piece of paper and a pencil where I can see the numbers than I can in my head. But yeah, I mean, that was a good while back, that's for sure. You know, those experiences when I was a kid. I was, I don't know, 12 at the time, I think. And you know, those experiences over the years are what have made me what I am when it comes to being in the outdoors. Lots of great experiences that I had, lots of great people that I learned from. In a lot of ways, I do kind of feel like I'm carrying on a tradition of outdoorsmanship, I guess. I don't know what else to really call it. Coming out to the outdoors and camping out, and just, even if you don't camp out, just spending time during the day. I was just thinking of something. I mean, I've thought of this many times over the last while, but I was just thinking about it, last night or the night before. And it's how, you know, some of us, you know, we grew up coming to the outdoors and doing outdoor stuff, and you know, camping, backpacking. And many of us have done it for a long time. Many of us have grown up doing it. And then there's many of us who, you know, maybe only have started doing this in the last few years, or maybe just, you know, 7 years ago or something like that. And, you know, it's just kind of interesting how, I don't know, it's, I would say that, you know, us outdoors people are, you know, a diverse group. And there's, you know, many different types of outdoors people. There's, you know, people that mostly just go out to hunt and fish and stuff like that and camp. And others who, you know, camp and backpack and do things like that, but wouldn't necessarily, you know, hunt and things like that. And, you know, but we all share a commonality of just really enjoying doing stuff outdoors. And I think there are some people that might be kind of more on the kind of snobby end of the outdoors thing that, you know, aren't really the hunter type or whatever. But, you know, I think that everybody should just keep in mind that no matter why we're out here for kind of a shared common love, really. Yeah, I was just thinking about, you know, I watch quite a few different videos on YouTube, and some folks, you know, they are quite knowledgeable about stuff, and, you know, they've only been, you know, getting out and doing stuff for, you know, just the last number of years or so. And it just kind of struck me how, you know, I have my background extends a lot further than some people, and I don't really mean anything by that. I'm not saying that I'm, you know, better than anybody else, that I necessarily know more than other people, although I would assume that having gotten out maybe somewhat more over the years, over a longer span of time, I may have picked up some stuff that people that haven't been out as long might, you know, that they might not have had a chance to kind of pick up some of that. But, you know, it is what it is. I'm not saying that. I don't know what I'm saying. I guess what I'm saying is that it just makes me grateful that I have a rich kind of outdoors history to draw on, because not everybody has that. But, you know, that doesn't really matter. The fact that folks just want to get out and enjoy the outdoors, you know, just start where they're at and start learning from there, you know, that's what matters. And what's really great is that we have resources like YouTube where people can learn stuff, because, you know, when I was younger, generally speaking, the way you learned stuff was either directly from somebody else or from books. And I took advantage of both of those methods. But, you know, and that's still the case. You can still do both of those things. But you also have these videos that you can watch. And, man, I've picked up all sorts of stuff just watching videos on YouTube. So I think that new folks nowadays have a probably easier time of learning stuff and kind of hitting the ground running a little bit better than people did, you know, years before. But yeah, it just kind of makes me grateful. Makes me grateful that I have years to kind of look back on and see the good times I had, the good experiences that I had. And, you know, like, you know, talking about new people, back in October when I hiked up to Conundrum Hot Springs, and I was talking with some of the folks in the hot spring there, where we were just relaxing and enjoying the hot water up there at 11,000 whatever feet that was, with the snow on the ground, the slopes around us. But several, you know, there's, I don't know, maybe about four groups of us, I guess I would say, and my group consisted of just me because I went by myself, but the other groups were a couple of pairs of folks, and I think two out of the, like one of those groups, I think that may have been their first ever backpacking trip. Another group, I think that they had only recently gotten into backpacking when they moved to Colorado. I can't remember what state they moved from, but it wasn't until they lived in Colorado that they started backpacking. So they had only done it maybe a few years. But I have to hand it to that group that came out, that was their like first backpacking trip, because that was a pretty adventurous first backpacking trip, because it was basically, yeah, it was late October, but up at that elevation in the mountains in Colorado, by late October, it's basically early winter up there. There's snow on the ground. It's cold at night. It's not really all that warm during the day. You know, they had some guts, in my opinion, hiking up there to camp. Either they had guts, or maybe they didn't realize what they were getting into. But either way, they stuck it out, and you know, they made a go of it. And I don't know how they were feeling about their trip by the time they left, because I only saw them that afternoon when they showed up at the hot spring. But you know, they spent the night. I know that because, well, they kind of camped right next to the trail where they weren't supposed to, but whatever. Up there, you have to have a permit to camp, and you have to camp in the established campsite, numbered campsite they have a permit for. They didn't do that, but just love sitting by a campfire. It's you know, it's just such a, I just feel so at home doing it. I think really almost any human does, because as humans we have spent so much time, so much of our human existence has been spent sitting by fires in the evening or other times of the day. Over so much of our existence, you know, it's only recently that we've gotten away from fires because we have all these fancy stoves and things to cook on, and furnaces to heat our houses. But you know, most of our existence we were by fires, you know, like a campfire or a fireplace of some sort. You know, I think spending a dark evening staring into a campfire is about one of the most human things you can do. I think it speaks to something deep within us. And as modern people, I think it kind of helps remind us of kind of who we are and where we've come from. But I suppose I've probably rambled on long enough by the campfire. I should probably wrap this up for now. I'm not sure my battery is doing that great on the camera either, so I'm probably going to enjoy the fire a little bit longer and then crawl into the old Lavvu tent and have to see about firing up the camera in there, see how well that works. But I'll see you when it's closer to bedtime here. Well, it's a nice cozy little tent, definitely. This will definitely be warmer than just sleeping out, you know, in the open or even in a hammock in and of itself. Although, you know, with the hammock you can keep yourself warm, but what's surrounding you isn't warm. It's definitely a cool little shelter, that's for sure. But yeah, for too long here, I need to go to sleep, and tomorrow will be a new day. So I'll see you in the morning. Well, first night spent in the Polish Lavvu shelter. went pretty well. When the sun came up, it definitely started warming up the inside because the sun was shining on the dark fabric. And that dried up really all the condensation that had been gathering on the inside of the tent from my breath. But it's a good little shelter, that's for sure. I'd definitely be interested to possibly get a small stove and use this in the winter for a hot tent. My thermometer over on the tree says it got down to about 5 below Celsius last night, so whatever that is in Fahrenheit, like 21, 22 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that. As far as I knew, it was only supposed to get down to about 28 or 30 Fahrenheit, so that was quite a bit cooler than I was expecting, but it's alright. I was plenty warm in here in my sleeping bag. But so I need to get some breakfast. Need to make some coffee, make some breakfast, so I suppose I'll get on that. Okay, time to heat up some water for coffee and oatmeal. That striker is definitely nice. Might see if I can put some sticks underneath that to maybe help stabilize it a bit. That way it's not so rolling around quite as much. I'm going to use this little windscreen too. I'll just help that be a little bit more efficient. So it loses much of the heat. Alright, we're boiling already. It really didn't take that long. And I didn't have this at full blast by any means. It was a fairly low flame for most of the time. I did bump it up a little bit towards the end, but not much. Definitely have to say the windscreen sure helps the thermal efficiency or whatever of the stove heating the water. Because it keeps that heat in, doesn't let it just kind of blow away. I'll get the coffee going. Hopefully that's a stable enough spot. And while that's going, might as well get my oatmeal going. Some good old-fashioned apple cinnamon oatmeal. It's kind of a go-to backpacking breakfast for me anyway. It's easy and cheap and doesn't weigh too much. Now I like these Hydro Flask bottles, or bottles, I guess it's not really a cup, whatever you call them. I like them, but I have found mine to be rather tippy. I've had this one fall over more than once. And usually it seems like it's going to spill coffee because it tipped over. It's usually going to spill it in somebody else's truck other than mine. I've noticed. Happened in my wife's truck a couple times last summer when I was up in Colorado. It happened at least once then. It happened another time. I can't remember if it was that trip or maybe it was the next trip when I went out in October. But it would spill over and I wouldn't have the cap thing all the way down. If you have the cap, the top of the lid closed, coffee won't come out of it, which is great. But if you're drinking out of it and you have the thing open, you leave it open and you tip it over and it falls over, it's obviously going to come out, and that's happened more than once. Then last weekend, when I was doing the adventure race with my friend Justin, I had this on his tailgate. I took the lid off of it to hopefully get it to cool down a little bit so I could drink it, because we were getting ready to start on the race, and it fell over, of course, and just dumped all the coffee all over the place. So I do find them rather tippy. I put one of these little silicone boots on this, which I guess for what it's worth, you know, it helps keep you from banging the bottom of it up. I guess I don't know if it's that big of a deal, but you might scuff the enamel coating or powder coat, whatever that is, a little bit, but I don't know. I don't know if it's that necessary, but I have found that makes it even more tippy than it was to begin with. And I don't think I'm the only one that has trouble with these things falling over, because back in February when Brooke Whipple on her channel, Girl in the Woods, was doing her have a fire every day in February challenge, and about every day she would go out, you know, make a fire, usually make coffee, and more than once she had problems with her Hydro Flask, which was a smaller version, maybe like the 12 ounce or whatever. This is like the 16 or 20 something ounce, I can't remember. This one's bigger than hers, but she had hers falling over on the snow while she was trying to make coffee, just like this, more than once. So I'm not sure they have the reputation of being the most stable things in the world, but they're pretty nice though, outside of that. Although I have to admit, I don't really find the lid to drink out of, I don't think it's not really my favorite. When you flip this up and I drink out of it, my nose is always bumping the little rubber part that plugs up the drinking hole. And also, if coffee runs out around here while you're drinking, which it basically usually always does, and then even if you like close the lid, if you tip it back, coffee will just run down this part, the little kind of residual bits of, you know, amounts of coffee that are there. It might drip off there, which is kind of annoying. So, you know, the Hydro Flask bottles are really good in a lot of ways, and in some ways they're not exactly my favorite. If I were to need one, if I was to need another one of these sorts of things, would I buy another Hydro Flask? Yeah, I probably would. They do seem to be pretty good, generally speaking, although I would say they're not perfect, but you know, whatever. When it comes to using this this windscreen, this folding windscreen with a stove, I have to say, I mean, there is a bit of wind today, unlike yesterday, and this definitely helped. Helped my water boil faster, helped me waste less fuel by just having that heat being blown away from my my pot, my tea kettle. But I got this one on Amazon. It was about 10 bucks. I figured I'd give it a shot. It is not, I believe that it's made out of, well, I wasn't going to say aluminum, but I have a feeling it's actually probably steel. And it is actually a bit on the heavy side. I can't remember exactly what the weight is, but it's not really that lightweight. For how big this thing is, it weighs quite a bit. So, you know, if I was going out backpacking, I probably wouldn't bring this one. Just because of how much it weighs. Probably just have to figure out some sort of natural windbreak, or you know, really carefully, like prop it up against a pack or something, you know, have a pack propped up against it, something like that. Yeah, I mean, this thing worked very, very well, but it's not that lightweight. So out here it doesn't matter. I didn't mind dragging the weight of this here. If I was just going to go out and maybe go on a little hike and make some coffee along the way, or a meal or something like that, I'd consider carrying the weight. Yeah, so far that MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe, I'm really liking it. I think it's a very well designed stove. I just need to use it some more and get a better feel for how it works, how I like it. I already know some of the pros of it. See if maybe I can find some cons to it or not, and then do a review video on it. I have to say, the by far and away the most popular video that I've uploaded on my channel was my review of the MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe. Was the MSR Pocket Rocket 2 cook set, that little mini cook set. That's definitely got more views than any of my other videos by quite a long shot. And I still like that stove. There's really nothing wrong with it at all. It's a great little stove. I mean, I think this one has some nice features to it that it doesn't. This one does weigh a little bit more than the Pocket Rocket 2. But with this one, it has that bigger burner on it, which is kind of nice. Gives you a bit wider flame coming out of it. Has that little igniter on it, which is very, very convenient. You don't have to worry about having a lighter or a match or something to light it, but you should always, of course, be carrying a lighter and some matches and, you know, some way to start a fire, obviously. And that pressure regulator that's incorporated in it seems like a nice touch. I guess just because it gives you more even performance. You know, sometimes with those gas canister stoves, you might be using it, and I think I've run into this before, not too much, but you'll have it set at a certain flow rate for the gas, you know, certain flame height, whatever you want to call it. And then as the stove's been running for a while, you'll notice that it's not quite what you set it at originally, so you have to adjust it and basically turn it up in order to get that same flame. With a pressure regulator, it should essentially take care of that problem for the most part. Now, I don't know if that'll completely correct for the issue where as the liquid fuel inside the canister vaporizes and cools the whole canister down and makes it a little less prone to want to vaporize. I don't know if it'll completely correct for that or not, but definitely seems to work pretty well. And like I said yesterday, it feels a little silly to be using a backpacking stove when I have a perfect good fire that I could easily heat up water over, but doing it all just to try out my stove and my tea kettle as a system. Definitely seems to work pretty well. I kind of wanted to make some macaroni and cheese last night and mix some tuna in with it, but as I was packing my stuff up, I realized that tea kettle, despite the fact it holds 1.8 liters, I didn't think that was going to be quite enough water to to boil the macaroni in. Need a little bit bigger pot for that, I think. Yeah, I guess I could have, thrown half of the box of macaroni and cheese in there and made that just fine, but I'd rather just make the whole darn thing all at once, I guess. But I definitely think that cooking in there would be doable. I cooked the noodles in them. I cooked the noodles in it, drained off the water, which worked pretty well, just pouring it through the spout, and got the noodles out without, it has the top of it, it has that little, where it narrows down, but it wasn't that difficult to scoop the noodles out with a spoon, and cleaning it up was easy. So far so good. I guess in my mind that's kind of the bigger version of the little Pocket Rocket 2 cook set that I have. This one has a lot more capacity to it, but it's kind of a similar thing. It would take up more space in your pack. It would weigh a bit more, obviously, but it allows you to heat up a lot more water. But I was able to heat up enough water for my coffee and my oatmeal, and I still had some to spare. That coffee is nice and hot still. Those hydro flasks definitely keep your stuff hot for a good while. Just a really nice day so far. I heard one turkey gobbling where it sounded like just one this morning. I got some of that on a video, but it's really more of an audio recording. Like I was saying last night, I'll probably put all those like nature sound, owls hooting, turkeys gobbling, birds singing stuff at the end of this video. Or I might possibly just make a couple videos on their own, which are just basically audio tracks with some sort of background for the video. That way, if you're interested in enjoying some sounds of nature that I got recorded on my microphone, you can listen to those. I almost think in a way that sometimes what you hear outdoors might be one of the things that your senses pick up on that you might have a tendency to overlook a little bit, because when you come out and you see things that are really beautiful, you notice that. When you get out and you smell that, well, at least when you're up in the mountains, at least in my experience, this only happens when I'm up in the mountains, generally speaking. You smell that wonderful evergreen smell in the air that I just love, or I smell that, in all honesty, kind of slightly weird, kind of funky smell that aspen trees give off. I mean, I love it, don't get me wrong, but aspen trees kind of have a weird smell to them. I noticed that. I really relish those scents when I'm up in the mountains, just because I live in Kansas and I don't get out to Colorado as much as I would like. because it's always those scents are always a special treat for me. You know, you feel the air, you know, you're aware of the air temperature, whether it's hot or cold, or, you know, like now I'm sitting here just thinking it feels really nice because it's like the, I don't know, low 40s, mid 40s, something like that, Fahrenheit. But I don't know, I think, I guess maybe, I don't know if this is just me, but I think maybe the sounds, sometimes you might almost overlook the sounds more so than other things, because I mean, you always just hear the kind of the sounds, kind of the background noise or whatever, but you know, a lot of the stuff I'm hearing right now is, you know, I'm not going to hear this if I'm at home. You know, it's just little things. You know, not necessarily like owls hooting and turkeys gobbling and stuff like that, but you know, over the winter you don't hear the birds chirping like they do in the springtime. So when you hear them in the springtime, it just that's kind of the sound of spring to me. There's even some times in the winter when I guess it warms up a bit and there's birds that are, I don't know if they get more active or whatever, but they start chirping more and singing, and it kind of reminds me of springtime, even if I know that springtime's, you know, still a ways out. One of those sounds I really love is the sound of wind blowing through pine trees or spruce trees, fir trees. Just the sound of that kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. It just has that, I guess it's sort of a whoosh sound, kind of a drawn out whoosh. I don't know how else to say it. Just the sound. It's a kind of a soft. I don't know. It's very, very hard for me to describe that sound, but I love the sound of wind blowing through pine trees. Those blowing through the needles. Evergreen trees. I just really love that. You know, when I was out in Colorado, you know, I even hear like a raven somewhere in the distance making its, you know, croaky call. We have lots of crows in Kansas, but we don't have ravens really. Not that I know of anyway. They seem to stay more towards the mountains, at least here in this part of North America. But even right now, you know, I hear the sound of the wind of the trees, and that's the type of thing that usually you probably just kind of look over, but just sitting here and talking about it and having kind of been cued into sounds, you know, this little overnighter anyway, it's just, you know, you just kind of want to stop and enjoy it. Obviously campfires make their sounds. Yeah, it's definitely a good spring morning to be out. Very nice. Very nice day. It's a nice night. Although I am really surprised that it got down as low as it did. I did not know it was supposed to get down to, you know, 5 below Celsius. I thought it was supposed to get, you know, to, you know, maybe 1 below at most. About 30 degrees, 28 degrees, 28 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit was all I thought it was supposed to get down to. It got down to about, you know, 22, 21, something like that. Sorry, I keep switching back between Celsius and Fahrenheit. I know, you know, a lot of us watching these things, we use Fahrenheit, and then a lot of other folks, obviously, like the rest of the world, uses Celsius, so I kind of try to put them both out there. either by saying them or by putting the little note across the bottom of the screen. But I suppose I should clean out my Sierra cup. It's like using my old school Sierra cup with my brand new but old school external frame backpack. Reminds me where I came from. You know, when I was a kid, essentially all the pictures you saw of people backpacking, they were carrying external frame packs. You know, pictures that were from like the 70s, 80s, maybe even 60s in some cases. You know, that's what backpackers used, were external frame packs. And I know that internal frame packs showed up, I don't know, maybe late 70s, definitely by sometime in the 80s they were around, although they weren't that popular for quite a while. It wasn't until the 90s that they really seemed to explode in popularity. Now they've basically completely replaced, for the most part, have completely replaced external frame packs. And I don't necessarily think that that's the greatest thing in the world. I think external frame packs definitely have some nice things about them that internal frame packs lack. I mean, for one thing, they're not so... For one thing, they give you more ventilation behind you. Your back doesn't get quite as sweaty as it does with internal frame packs. It's easier to lash stuff on the outside of a external frame pack, strap things onto them and stuff like that. I think they're easier to kind of strap stuff on the outside of them and to not look quite ridiculous in doing so. I mean, for what that's worth. With external frame packs, it's kind of, there's a certain aesthetic of having kind of everything inside the thing and not having all this stuff, you know, strapped on the outside of them. Even if they do have attachment points for doing that, you just look kind of silly, I guess, if you do. At least that's the way I kind of see it. At least that's the way it kind of seems to work in my mind. Yeah, they do. External frame packs kind of shift around on you a little bit while you're carrying them. So if you're scrambling around rocks and stuff like that, they do move on you. And in those cases, you know, an internal frame pack would probably be the better way to go. But for just regular old like trail hiking, that's usually never an issue. I really think for just flat out classic trail hiking, external frame packs are, I think, better. Just because I think they're a little bit more comfortable to carry because they carry the weight higher, so you actually are able to walk along in a more upright, more normal stance than you are with the internal frame packs, because those make you kind of hunch forward a little bit in order to correct the center of gravity, because the weight is further down. But yeah, I mean, there are still a few companies out there that are making external frame packs, and Kelty, when I got it's a Kelty, and I think that they were one of the innovators that first started making the aluminum frame external frame packs back in, I don't know if it was the 60s or when it was. I know JanSport also was a company that was in on the game really early too. So in my mind, those two companies are kind of the granddaddy companies of the external pack frame world, at least the kind of modern aluminum frames. But yeah, they're out there. Might try one out. You might like it. Well, I guess that just about does it for me out here today. Just need to finish packing up my stuff and pretty much be ready to head out. Like I was saying earlier, I'm going to take those audio recordings of the owls and also the birds and the turkeys in the morning, and either I'll put them at the end of this video, or I will make separate videos of their own in case you're interested in listening to those. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon to get notifications when I post new videos if you want to see more. And share this video if you know somebody that might be interested in it. I'm Gareth with Mountain Coffee Outdoors. I'll see you next time.